Hello, my name's Ken Kinter. I'm an assistant professor at Rutgers University, and I'd like to introduce you to how to create the worst presentation ever. So, first off, to do the worst presentation ever, make sure that you don't have any contact information whatsoever on the slide so that no one can find out where your information came from or reach you afterwards. Very important. So, okay, for the sake of the presentation, here's how you get me. Here's my email address, and the line at the bottom is where all of our videos are located, which we'll talk more about later. As always, we appreciate your time in viewing. Feel free to like and comment and share, and we love our subscribers. And if you have any suggestions for other presentations that you would like us to take on, please fire away. This presentation and all the others like it are sponsored by the New Jersey Department of Health and the Department of Human Services and the Rutgers Institute for Inpatient Psychiatric Rehabilitation. We are grateful for the financial support and the other support they give us that makes all of our work possible. So, in order to do the worst presentation, we can't have any clear objectives or any idea what we're really talking about. So, I'm just going to go on endlessly. And here's some pictures of my pets. So, say hi to Mama and Miska. Okay. The real reason for this presentation is to illustrate many common mistakes made by presenters, both beginners and the veterans, and how you can make, you could use this presentation to help you make better presentations, but I think your real goal is to make the worst one possible. And all of these things that you see in this video are things that I have either done or witnessed. And I thank everybody for all of them because that's how you learn, right? So there are many different dimensions to making a truly terrible presentation. The physical setting is a contributor. The content is a contributor. All sorts of PowerPoint and technical stuff is very helpful. And also issues with the presenter themselves. And we're going to talk about all those things and some extra pieces as well. So let's start out with the physical setting. It's very helpful if the room is too cold or too hot, preferably both. I've gotten both of them on evaluations before. And we got my buddies here, the snow miser and the heat miser. The size of the room, is the room too small and everybody's crowded and on top of each other? Or are you doing this in a cavern where it's just clearly not intended for the purpose of the room? Are the chairs uncomfortable? And to the right here, you see a restraint chair from a colonial era state psychiatric hospital. Are the chairs uncomfortable? Because that's really helpful. I'm very sensitive to acoustics. So if people can't hear you in the room or if there's other things going on or distractions, that's problematic. Time of day is also an issue. Are you getting people at the beginning of the day? Are you getting them at the end of the day? Are you getting them after a shift, like the night shifters right after a shift? Because you're guaranteed to have an attentive audience then. So let's talk about the presentation itself. The presentation has to be intended toward its audience. If it's too detailed or too technical or over their heads, you've lost them. If there's no flow to it, there's no idea how do you get from the beginning to the end, there's no clear path. No inside jokes. If you say anything that the room doesn't get or understand, there's no point to it. Is the presentation applicable to what they do? And if so, how? How do you stress that? This is how you can use this, not this is what I do. I'm being paid to do this. So here you go. I notice a lot of presenters are really sloppy with time, starting late, finishing late, not having breaks. All of this stuff is bad. Structure this out, make it specific so people know exactly they're allocating their own time and attention. So help them. And also interaction. If people are just being talked at, well, you see the picture on the right. So you see what's going on there. And I've worked these rooms before, and so have you. Um, no interaction. You're trying to enlist them. They can help you tailor your presentation to what it is they need, which is really helpful. Their interaction also gives you time to game plan and make any changes on the fly, as opposed to I'm just going to come in here and lecture. PowerPoint, blessing and a curse. Many, many basic PowerPoint mistakes. Um, what colors are you using? We'll see an example of this in a minute. The size of the font so that people can read it, multiple fonts or strange fonts. Um, but the big one that we hear is too many words on a slide. So there's this phenomenon in learning that when you first put up the slide, and you're doing this even as we speak, when the slide goes up, you sort of stop listening to me and read the slide. So if there are only a few words, that process is pretty quick. If there are a lot of words on the slide, then everything I say is womp, 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 womp while the person's reading the slide. So if you have no images and you have tons and tons and tons of words, or as an old colleague put it to me, the slides are not your cue cards. If you want to make a handout for people, make a handout for people. but don't use your slides as the handout. So, and having images as well. I have colleagues that use almost exclusively images and far, far less words in their presentation. They're just trying to get an idea across. You can do a handout with the information on it if you really want to do that. So here's a copy of an actual example of a PowerPoint nightmare slide. The colors are lovely. The fonts are mixed. It's largely illegible. And the content came from my dissertation. So, and it also has nothing to do with the topic at hand. So there we go. But I've seen slides in presentations that actually look like this. All right. So now let's talk about speaker issues. A lot of people who really know what they're talking about don't present well on camera or in a live room. They're mumbling or they don't speak loudly enough. I mean, you can hear my voice. This is not my traditional therapy voice or my conversational voice. This is the training voice. It's a little louder, it's a little clearer. I try to enunciate better. And I also struggle to not speak so fast. We're in the northeast part of the country. We speak very quickly and we lose a lot of people in the Midwest and South. So, how can we communicate effectively? Probably the biggest speaker issue, slide readers. If you're watching this, please take a solemn vow. I will not read my slides. They're reading your slides. You should be vamping off of that. You should never be turning to look at a slide any longer than it takes to confirm that you've got the right slide up. That's it. If you have to read it, you don't know it. So slide reading, undoubtedly my number one complaint from everyone I've spoken to about this. This also means you turn your back to the crowd. So you've lost eye contact, you've lost attention. We talked about the speed, we've talked about the volume, repetitive speech. We all have bad habits when we speak. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you understand? We do all these things repeatedly. I have my own. Everybody has their own. It's kind of like their fingerprint. The trick is to not have it happen so much that it's obtrusive. A fantastic presenter that I worked with said, "Does that make sense?" about 21 times in a training. And I stopped listening to the training and I started counting how many times he said it. It's distracting. There's a variant of this called up speech or up talking, and it's where everything sounds like a question, even when it isn't. And it's a repetitive pattern, which can be distracting. And this is becoming increasingly common, and I find it very distracting. Maybe other people do not. To me, a question comes up at the end, a statement does not. So it's a strange little thing, but anything that you do verbally that distracts from what you are saying is not helpful. Then we move into and Now these are difficult to get rid of altogether. I don't think you can absolutely completely eliminate them. What I see them as being is when you are thinking of the next thing to say, you're buying yourself time. So you go, you're thinking of the next thing. If you've practiced the presentation, what I've noticed is if I've practiced the presentation right before doing it, my ums, ers, and ahs drop by like two-thirds because I don't have to think about what I'm going to say next. I've got it. You don't want to come across as arrogant, and you certainly don't want to come across as boring. Part of this is meant to be entertaining. That's part of being interactive. That's part of being funny, while you're trying to, bring these other elements in. So I took these pieces that we talked about and put them in a quick checklist. If you want a copy of this, I can send it to you. Just send a request along. Just to give yourself a quick analysis of, have you gotten into these things that may interfere with how effective your training is or introduce what I'm calling suckage into your presentation. So the first column is the room, the size of the room, the temperature of the room, the chairs, what time of day. The presentation, is it the appropriate level for your intended audience? Does it have a flow? Does it fit the time? That's really hard. Sometimes you have to actually do a training once with a live audience before you know. Do you have breaks built in so that when the room starts to glaze over, you respond? Do you have interact opportunities for interaction so you can hear from them and break it up a little bit, and no inside jokes that no one's going to get but you? How is the PowerPoint? Less is more. Font is consistent. It's quick and easy to read. Not a lot of words, no cue cards. You've got nice visuals, but you don't overdo it. And reasonable color choices. You're not trying to hurt the eye. And of course, you also don't want to blur out what you have on your screen with all these different colors and effects. So the speaker, don't read slides. Don't read them. Know them. How is your voice? Clear, loud, easy with the repetitive speech. Practice it so that the and uhs are gone and that you also have a better idea of the timing. And one thing I added on here is to think about this as edutainment. You're trying to educate people, you're also trying to entertain them at the same time. If you can't hold their attention, they're not going to be able to learn. So now we move on to references. And of course, I don't have any. And a bad presentation won't have any. Anything that you have that is fact or data based, the references should be right there. So if somebody wants to argue with you, they can argue with your facts instead of arguing with you. And you have right there where you got that from and can defend yourself. Now, in my case, this presentation was a result of 35 years of giving trainings and receiving trainings, in many cases from the best, and also from experts who didn't present effectively and made a lot of these mistakes that we've talked about. A couple other things I wanted to touch base on when you are doing a synchronous or a live training. There are other issues that you may have with heckling. You may have someone that challenges you. And again, that's one of the reasons you want your references. You don't want to get in a power struggle. You have a certain amount of time to relay a certain amount of information. And if you can move that person to the end so you can talk with them one on one, I would definitely recommend doing that. You don't want time taken away getting in an argument with someone. It isn't a power struggle till you make it a power struggle. Another thing to discuss is Zoom. Your Zoom background, is your Zoom background professional? Is there anything in the Zoom that you don't want people to see? Does it portray you in a decent way? Or do you have your cats and dogs and miscellaneous family members walking through while you're doing your presentation? Is the lighting good? Can people see your face? Do a trial run so that you see what it's like beforehand and you don't trip over the tech. Another thing that happens in live trainings and also synchronous is very often people who are asking questions really aren't asking questions, they're promoting themselves. It'll usually start with, "Hi, my name is Bill, and I worked with Enlightened Soul Counseling and dot, dot, dot." And they go on about themselves for quite a while and they may not answer a question. That's sort of a necessary evil. And usually that's the first person that has a question or a comment for your training. So the last piece of this is if you like this video, the line at the bottom, this is where all of our other videos are, or you can look me up on YouTube under Ken Kinter. There are a ton of videos under mental health, addictions, trauma, psychiatric hospitals, and there's all sorts of other materials there, such as manuals and things along those lines. So I thank you again for your time and attention. All the best to you. And I hope this either, if your intention was to make a worse presentation, I hope it made it worse. If your goal is to make your presentations better, I hope it makes it better. And all the best to you. And thanks for watching.